What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones back with another morning drop. Today, Coach Hugh Freeze had an opportunity to speak with the media, and we are going to talk about what he had to say coming into the University of Louisiana Monroe game. Let's get straight to it. Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on.
You are now listening to the War Report.
The morning drop. It is Tuesday, November the 12th. Hopefully everybody's having a good start to their week. We are brought to you, of course, by the good folks over at the Rogue Shop right here with the morning drop. Use code REPORT when you do at America's #1 online dispensary. Get you a little something off over there and make sure it tells you or tells them the folks at the War Report sent you when you go over there. And we appreciate you guys continuing to support. Coach Freeze addressing the media after the bye week ahead of the ULM game, talking about a lot of things. And I think the biggest thing that is on the minds of uh, Auburn fans is really what he had to say about the quarterback position. Like, let's be clear. Everybody wants to hear about that. He made mention on the SEC teleconference call. I talked a little bit about this last week on the midweek report that there may be a possibility of someone besides Peyton Thorne getting the opportunity to start during his game. He elaborated, excuse me, on that a little bit more in the press conference yesterday. Let's hear his comments on that, and we'll talk about what he said in regard to that.
Well, I mean, Peyton's played solid. Now he was not able to practice last week with the shoulder, and we'll see how this week goes with that, and with the others getting the reps and kind of go from there. But I don't when I say that, it's certainly not an indication that I don't think he has played pretty solid here as of late. So, but you start kind of thinking big picture, and that's not always the easiest thing to do because you love your players and you want what's best for all of them. That gives us the best chance to win the remaining 3 games. And obviously we'll start seeing how the health is first and foremost.
Coach Freeze there talking about the potential of starting someone else besides Peyton Thorne. He started off by saying, hey, Peyton's been solid. After the benching, he has played fairly solid, hasn't turned the ball over very much since he was relieved of the starting duties there going into the New Mexico game, and he came back second half versus Arkansas. Not a lot of turnovers for Peyton Thorne, so it's been better from that regard. But, I mean, let's be clear. The offense just has not really clicked. Specifically, the pass offense has been off all season, and the points haven't been there. Right now, he addresses some of the offensive stuff later, and we'll get into that. But I don't think that the offense is in full gear, right, with Peyton Thorne there. And that's not to say that someone else being the quarterback would make it go into full gear. But he said solid. But the thing that you have to point out is that he also said Peyton Thorne's hurt right now, right? So he got hurt during the last game, and he hadn't practiced at all last week. And just starting the week, he is questionable as to how many reps he's going to be getting. So they had to get reps for someone else during practice last week. And as you get into the game prep for this week, it's going to be interesting to see what the division of reps are going to be for the rest of the quarterbacks. So he talked a little bit about that, and the big picture is the thing that he said. You need to be able to start looking big picture. And the big picture portion of that is Peyton Thorne's not going to be your quarterback of the future. It's impossible. He's not going to be at Auburn next season. So you have nothing really to build upon in these last couple of games other than potentially getting to a bowl game if Peyton Thorne is the guy that gives you the best chance of doing that, particularly against Texas A&M and Alabama. So do you have enough faith in one of those other guys based upon how they play versus ULM to go into that next game? You tried that for New Mexico and it didn't work out so well. You had a great showing from Hank Brown in that game, and then you came out and throw 3 interceptions early versus Arkansas in that first half and end up pivoting back to Peyton Thorne. Is history going to repeat itself in that regard of a great game for someone versus a lower tier opponent as far as the talent is concerned, and the division of where they are, in terms of, they're not part of a Power 4 conference, or definitely not an SEC team. Are you going to have a good showing versus them and then come out there and not do so well against A&M that next week? And now you pivot back to Peyton Thorne again. But the big picture portion of that is, is someone in this QB room, someone who you can rely on to be a potential starter next season. So it changes the calculations of what you need to be able to do in the transfer portal and how quickly you need to be able to get a true freshman potentially ready to play next season. Now, a lot of those questions can't be answered until you get into spring camp and you know who's here, who's not. However, you do want to go in with an idea in live game duty what some of these guys can do to run the offense, what things you can call for them realistically right now and build upon for later. So that's the big picture portion of this. Looking forward to seeing how that progresses over the next couple of days. I am positive that that question will get asked again this Wednesday when you get into, or tomorrow, I should say, when you get into the SEC teleconference, because you'll have had an opportunity to have more practice since then. You'll have more reps that have been garnered for whomever, and you'll have a clearer picture by then, hopefully, of who the starting quarterback will be for ULM. That does not indicate what's going to happen going forward for A&M or Bama, but it is going to be a clear point of conversation or topic of conversation around the Auburn circles in regards to that. But speaking of the division of reps for the other quarterbacks, he did get a little bit more into that. Let's hear his comments about the other quarterbacks during the practice sessions last week.
Yeah, the second open week, we actually got the threes or the other guys quite a bit of reps, and in the three practices we had, they all, and then we had a little scrimmage to close out it. Offense versus defense, other guys that don't typically get reps, and offense won that scrimmage on a pass play from Walker to one of the young receivers, and so it was good to see them get reps. We got to Holden and Hank quite a few also.
So interestingly there, it sounds as if Walker White got the lion's share of the reps because he said, hey, we went with some of the younger guys out there and had a scrimmage. And I don't know if that was just because it was the open week and they wanted to try to get some of the guys who hadn't played a lot some time to get some reps, or if that's truly kind of where the thinking is. Hey, we're going to go younger with some of these guys and give them an opportunity to go out there and impact the game. He was asked specifically about that, and he was non-committal. But interestingly, just he looked happy to see the progress from Walker White and throwing what he termed as a game-winning pass to one of the younger receivers that he did not name specifically during that scrimmage. So the offense winning that scrimmage there. But the reason why I specifically say it seems as if Walker White might have been the front runner, or at least that guy that got most of the reps last week, is he goes into, we got Holden and Hank time also, right? So it seemed as if Walker White and then the other guys too. So again, I don't know if that indicates what's going to be happening this week during practice. That's still yet to be materialized, and that happens, yesterday and today. We'll see a little bit more of that. When I say see, we're going to hear more about that as the week continues to progress towards a game plan for ULM. But I do believe that this is really the first indication of practice team, or excuse me, non scout team reps that you're hearing about from Walker White. So good on him to be able to step in and be able to do some things that got some positive momentum for him out there. And we will look forward to seeing what will happen with young Walker White as this week continues to progress. Before we get into these final comments that Coach Hugh Freeze had, definitely want to take a little bit of time and give a quick shout out to the good folks over at Joy Mode. Listen, they are continuing to be sponsors of the War Report, sponsors of today's morning drop. If you are over at tryjoymode.com, you want to use code REPORT to get yourself 20% off plus free shipping. If you're having confidence issues when it comes to the bedroom, this is the supplement for you. This is not like some sketchy gas station pill. This is not some prescribed medication. Joy Mode is the remedy to get you better cardiovascular flow that can aid you outside of the bedroom, but absolutely help you in that situation as well. Head into the bedroom with all the confidence necessary to be at your maximum level of performance. Head over to tryjoymode.com. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you use code REPORT. And again, we appreciate you all supporting the people who support the War Report. Let's get in a little bit more and talk about comments from Coach Hugh Freeze. And I'm going to highlight here a comment that he made in regard to um, the last few games of the season and what their impact would have on recruiting. And this is a very this is a hot button topic when you go into Auburn communication circles around with the fans about, you know, is Auburn going is are they limping to the finish line with this recruiting class? You were poised to be a top 5 class, even poised to potentially be a top 1 or 2 class, and doesn't appear as if that's going to be the case now. And can Hugh Freeze continue to galvanize this 25 class and find ways to show them the light at the end of the tunnel so that they get across the finish line with a top 10 class? Here. You've already lost some recruits. There's some other ones that people are worried about right now. People taking visits all over the place. Here's the message that he had in regard to that.
Yeah, I think it's vital that we compete, and that's the expectation, and certainly that's the goal, and give our chance to win these football games against good football teams that we have to play to help build momentum, as you say, and confidence in everybody that we're headed in the right direction, regardless of the record. And then recruiting is big too, to trying to finish strong and continue to get the 25 class to understand we're not far off. We need their help to come in and help us to continue this build.
So he said the 25 class needs to see it. The guys inside the building need to see it. He went on later when he was asked about just the re-recruitment process, saying that that's already happening, right? They're already actively in the process of trying to retain guys on this team. And they need to get the confidence of everybody that the team is being competitive and moving in the right direction in order to do that. So it's important. First and foremost, you can't go out there and struggle. Like, just winning the ULM game is not going to be good enough. You need to go out there and put out a dominant performance versus ULM to get people believing again. And then I think, the statement he made about going out there and competing, that's regard to Texas A&M and Alabama. You can't go out there and get embarrassed by either of those teams. You need to put a solid showing. It'd be nice if you could win both of them, right, to get yourself bowl eligible, but you need to at least be competitive in those games to show people we're not far off. That needs to be the message, or that is the message I think that he's continuing to hammer home with the 25 classes. We're not far off. You all can help get us over the hump. See, we're right there scratching the surface, but if we just had you on this roster, we'd be able to do a little bit better. And these last 3 games, that is what they are earnestly attempting to do, is figure out how that message can hit home. But it starts with going out there and being competitive and showing yourself to be a team that has some competency, particularly on the offensive end. I think you've done enough defensively to have people say, hey, I trust what DJ Durkin can do to put my guys in the right position. And players feel like they've been put in the correct position, but you've got to help them out on the offensive side of the football. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the offense looks like, particularly if Peyton Thorne is not going to be at the helm. How much of a decrease is there? He talked a little bit about the playbook and play calling, which is the next thing that I'm going to get into here. And just kind of what that needs to look like as far as the size and the scale and the scope of the things that need to happen. But I'm going to be honest, when he started talking about the play calling thing, and I've been down on this the entire season. I just don't think that it's a sound strategy to have this, multiple guys calling plays for different scenarios thing. Like, I just think you need to have an offensive play caller and let that be it. And this is the thing I hated to hear the most from Coach Hugh Freeze. But he talks about the play calling duties. He was asked about kind of how the division of labor was going with the play calling duties. And here's what he had to say.
Yeah, it's a combination. Obviously the game plan is done by all of us sitting in a room as to what we like on base downs and shot plays and third down and red zone, and so it's usually a mixture. Kent handles most of the third and longs, and Nix and I kind of combine on the rest of it. Truthfully.
All right, so third and long, Kent Austin, he and Derek Nix are combining on the rest of it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I just don't. I'm going to be interested to know whether or not this is something he's always done. Have you always done this play calling by committee, or did you just decide to do that when you got to Auburn for some reason? Like, I just don't know if that makes a lot of sense. Um, if you follow this channel and you've heard me talk about this before, you've heard me say this phrase, and I will repeat it again, that I feel as if play calling, whether that's offensive or defensive, it is more art than it is technical, right? Like you can have a play sheet, but knowing when to call certain things and where in the flow of the game certain things need to happen, that is art. And I think the malfunction that this offense has shown, particularly when, you know, the times when you want to call shot plays or the times that you want to call gadget plays, has been so herky jerky and that wasn't the right time to do that. I think that that is shown in this. It looks dysfunctional because it doesn't come from a singular mind, right? And you don't need to have single points of failure, and you do need more input. He talked about game planning. Everybody gets into that. He specifically said that we, as a group, decide what our red zone packages are going to be and what our third and long stuff is going to be. And good Lord, if you guys sat and you came up with some of these red zone strategic things and the red zone offense is looking that bad, and you went in and said, hey, this is my red zone package, uh y'all game planning isn't going so well either, right? So that I don't know that the offensive mind and a hive mind in this instance is working properly. I don't think that it is. I mean, listen, it's indicated by the results of, because ultimately you want to put points on the board, right? Like, you know, he talked a little bit about, I didn't put it in the clip. The full video, by the way, is up on the channel where you can hear all of his comments. But he talked about, you know, if you look at the per play averages, it looks good, which he's not wrong, right? Like Auburn's doing good in the per play averages, but situational, play calling and then strategically what you want to do to attack defenses has not been good. It just hasn't. It hasn't been good. And I think that is largely due to a couple of things, right? A couple of things. I think you're handcuffed by what you have in your consistency in offensive line play and your consistency in quarterback play and the youth and inexperience that you have, and chemistry that you lack with the quarterback and the wide receivers. All of those things go into a gumbo that is further soured by the seasoning of a game plan coming from multiple. Listen, if you have multiple people in there adding seasons and flavors and things to the gumbo of what you're trying to do, it's not going to come out good. It's if you don't have one mind, at least putting the recipe together and then administrating or orchestrating how people are going to do along the line of cooking and preparing those things, and that it's just, you need a head chef. And right now, this offense does not have a head chef. I'm not saying you can't have a sous chef in there. I'm not saying that you can't have, you know, a souffle guy or what. Like, I'm not saying that it needs to, everything needs to be done by the same person, but one singular mind needs to be in charge of what the plan, final outcome of that plan is. And then one person needs to take that plan and go execute it on game day. You can get everybody's opinions. Sure. Hey man, what are you thinking right here? You know, in crucial situations, you got blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. I'll take that under advisement. But somebody needs to be making all the calls though. It's got to be a flow. And again, that's an art. It's an art. And I just don't think that it clearly, again, results speak for themselves. Per play average is great. When it's time for the money, it's coming up short, and they got to figure something else out when in return. And I don't like hearing that. I don't like hearing that. But again, if it prove me wrong, have you done this at other places and it's worked and it's just not working here? Or do you just not have the right collaborative set of people? Because this was the year where you had more of the people who were used to working with you and all. Have you all just, it just not working here? Right? Like, I don't know. Like, what's the thing with that and the offensive play? I don't like it. And I really want them to reevaluate the way that they're doing that. But we'll see, you know, again, as the season progresses and you get into the offseason, whether or not there are going to be any changes with that. But right now, it does not seem to be working. And that's not just a skill thing, right? I think that some of the calls are poor, and it's because I think too many people are trying to put their hand in that pie. All right. Last thing I'll play for you here is he did actually talk a little bit about the upcoming game versus ULM and their necessity as a team and staff not to overlook them. Definitely want to play you some comments that he had about the opponent this coming Saturday in the University of Louisiana Monroe.
Well, we don't take anyone lightly from a staff's perspective, and I hope that our team certainly won't. We should have learned enough lessons about that over the course of time here. So this is a good football team that plays really hard and has good scheme and good coaches and enough players that scare you. So I think it's 22 he's a really, really good player. And then defensively, always in the state of Louisiana, there's a bunch of athletes, always. And they've got their share on that team for sure. And Coach Vincent, again, I'm impressed with the job that he's done both when he was at UAB and now at ULM. So we can't overlook them for sure.
So speaking of Louisiana Monroe saying we can't overlook them, he's had some experience going against this coaching staff when they were at UAB. But he specifically talked about one player in particular on their offense that gives them some concern. Number 22, that is Ahmad Hardy. He is the freshman running back there for ULM. On the season, Ahmad Hardy is 916 yards, so approaching 1,000-yard season there, 9 touchdowns, averaging 5.6 yards per carry on the year. So Hardy is a guy who is 5'10", 205. So he's a load, right? Like he's a, solidly built young man that's going to be coming downhill versus this Auburn defense. So they're going to have to figure out how to slow the run game down for ULM. He talked about the athletes that they have at ULM, a lot of them coming from the state of Louisiana. And those guys that are down there and being able to compete against them. And I'm looking forward to Auburn embracing the challenge. Listen, as he said, you can't afford to overlook anybody at this point in time. And hopefully they've learned the lesson about overlooking anyone, particularly late season. You feel like, oh, this is an easy dub. Come in there, handle business. So far this season, they've handled business against the non-con, teams that you would sleepwalk against. They've gone out there and handled them. But this week they need to go out there and do that as well. And get themselves some more positive momentum going into the final 2 games of the season. But I want to hear what you all think about all of this thing. I know there are going to be some people who have some thoughts about my comments in regards to the quarterback scenario, in regard to what Coach Hugh Freeze said about quarterbacks and play calling. Definitely want to hear those right down there in the comment section once this video is done. But once again, we appreciate the good folks over at the Rogue Shop for sponsoring today's morning drop. They are America's #1 online dispensary, whether it's sleep, stress, pain, anxiety relief. Rogue Shop's got a remedy for you. Make sure that you tap in with them. Tell them the War Report sent you. By using code REPORT, get you 15% off right there. Before you guys get out of here, make sure you are sharing this content with somebody. Go ahead and like that video. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. So much more great content coming from you for you right here at the War Report. And we'll be back with so much more of that. But until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.